which I'm going to give, I'm going to be speaking at, especially if they know in advance that it's me and they show up anyway. So thank you very much. It's good to see you. And of course, many of you I know already, so I encourage you. And the topic of the subject is, why should I run for office? And what office should I run for, possibly also? Okay. As some of you may have heard, I have said many, many, many times, and I emphasize for decades to my high school students in American government classes, that everyone pays attention to the presidential elections and everybody pays attention to the US congressional elections and the statewide elections. But the people that have the most impact on your everyday life are right here in your county. And they are your county commissioners, your city councilors, your school boards, and your county sheriff. Okay, those individuals make ordinances and laws and policies and regulations that affect people's everyday lives. And to give you an example, I was just 15, 20 minutes ago reading a story of where the city council in San Jose, California, is going to pass a law, an ordinance. It's going to be passed tomorrow. It will be passed that will require anybody who owns a gun to have liability insurance, proof of that liability insurance, and keep that liability insurance with the gun at all times. And so even though the county sheriff said that they are not going to go out actively searching for someone that would be violation of the ordinance, they would have to, however, if an incident ever occurred, require you to show your proof of insurance if they were ever in your house or came to your house or confronted you. Now, this probably is blatantly unconstitutional. And well, no, not probably. I think it is blatantly unconstitutional. But I use it to illustrate the fact that this city council is going to pass a bill. Oh, by the way, the purchase of a permit and show a proof of insurance is going to cost you $35 that they are going to give to a newly created nonprofit organization that will use the money to establish funds for counseling people on suicide or victims of crimes or whatever. And the idea of a state agency or a government agency taxing you to give it to a nonprofit agency to conduct some policy or whatever is blatantly unconstitutional in my humble opinion. However, go back to the original point. This is a city council. The people of San Jose, California probably have no knowledge whatsoever of what's going on with their city council until it's too late. They do not, in fact, many of them do not know who their city councilors are, okay? And if you walk around the streets of Kalispell or Flathead County and you ask people who their state legislators are, or who their city councilors are, or who their county commissioners are, can you give me their name? And I would venture to say that 9 out of 10 will be unable to give you a definitive answer or a correct answer. But that does not negate, of course, the purpose for why it is necessary that we run for office. Okay. Of course, we all know that running for office subjects you to a wide variety of abuse and or attention, and people, many people, very few people like the idea of being in the crosshairs of enemies. Okay, I can remember when I was a young man, my grandmother teaching me and talking to me that little Johnny, of course I was little Johnny because my dad was Big John. Okay, little Johnny, there are times when you're going to have to learn to walk alone. And by that, what she meant was, of course, to be able to stand up to antagonistic peer influence that would drive you to do something either in silent, keep it silent about something that's wrong, or to encourage you, of course, to go along. And of course, the old saying is to get along, you got to go along. Okay, so if you are going to swim against the tide, then you're going to run for office. And we know that running for office subjects you to a wide variety of things. But I would offer to you the fact that those 4 offices that do not require a large amount of money, and except for county commissioners, do not require a large amount of time, okay, is imperative to you defending the community and the values for which you stand for, what you would like to have. Okay, for instance, we could talk now, the news right now is the library board. And God bless the county commissioners, Brad and Randy and Pam, for appointing a group of individuals who now have a majority on the library board, and they are actively involved in making the decisions as the people's representatives. When I attended the library board meetings the last several times, it became apparent that it was the case of the library employees believed that they were the tail wagging the dog. And the previous director of the library said, and I quote, "It's the job of the library director to protect the First Amendment." No, it's not. I don't mean to break this to you, this young lady, but that is not the job of the library director. The library director's job is to conduct policies and direct a library in accordance with the board, the library board, who was appointed by the people's representatives, meaning this, in our case, the county commissioners. Okay. In March of 2020, when the COVID disaster began, I wrote a letter to the editor that went viral for some reason. And I said that health boards and county health officers are making rules and doing things to this country without the people having an opportunity through their elected representatives to express their displeasure. And when we went to the legislature in January of 2021, your Montana, the 67th legislature of the state of Montana corrected that abuse, where county health officers cannot issue orders to the populace of their county without the approval of the health board. And the health board, of course, here in Montana is once again elected by or appointed by the county commissioners. So I rest my case when I think I've illustrated adequately is how your local offices, your county commissioners, your city councilors, your school, your trustees, your school board trustees are the people that influence your life the most directly on a day-to-day basis. And if we want the response, the values of this nation that was founded on principles that rely on the people's sovereignty, that rely on the idea that community involvement is the key to a healthy community, then we need to have good people running for office all the time. Okay, in keeping with my reputation as being the legislator most likely to give a history lesson with every speech, okay, I have to tell you that in 1835, a French nobleman visited America, and his name was Alexis de Tocqueville. And he came to America specifically, he was a bit of a philosopher as well as a writer, and he came to America to try to discover why the American form of democracy had survived when the French democracy had degenerated into terrorism and eventually reverted to a dictatorial monarchy under Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, And his conclusion was twofold, and I'll give you those two conclusions, but I will add a third. The first thing he observed about Americans, he says, the Americans are incredibly involved in their communities. They are joiners. They join all kinds of community associations. They join their various social clubs. They join their various organizations. They are inveterate joiners. And the second thing he said is they are incredibly religious. Okay, and so his conclusion was that Americans do naturally, through their community involvements, those things that they should do, and they don't need a government to force them to do it. And he predicted a prediction and a prophecy that we are seeing come true today, that if Americans ever lose their Christian values, he said it, came out and said it, their values, then they would degenerate into a population where it would be necessary for government to use increasing powers to force them to behave, which they do naturally as it is. Now, a third thing that I would point out, okay, not only is joining community involvements and being involved in the extension of church values vital, but I would add to you a third thing. And the third thing is that in order for us to have the values of a community and defend those values of a community, then it is vital for us to make sure that in all aspects of life that they are visible, defended, and spoken. Okay, in my many years of teaching, I learned that it was not necessary to have a draconian punishment on someone, a student that it was socially deviant, or in other words, acted out or did something wrong. All you had to do was confront it. Okay, and it's no accident that the progressives and liberals of today do not want debate, and they try to silence us. How is it interesting? It's interesting that the claims of censorship are being bandied about by those opposing to the library board's attempt to withdraw from general circulation a book that is pornographic and pedophilic. Okay, but at the same time, they attempt to stifle debate when you bring up moral issues. Okay, so it's vital for us to, if we want a society that respects the life and liberty, then we need to get involved, and we need to get involved at the levels that affect us most directly. Most directly, and of course that means our county commission, our local governments. Okay, one of the things that you hear people say, well, democracy works best if the most number of people get involved. Okay, the founding fathers were not interested in democracy, even though Alexis de Tocqueville called his book Democracy in America. It's not democracy, okay? Because the founding fathers, the Constitutional Convention in, say, 1787 was designed to reduce democracy, because what had happened between 1776 and 1787 was that all 13 independent states passed socialistic laws that infringed that imposed a tyranny of the majority on the minority. Now, the minority in those days was the rich or the wealthy or people of property. And of course, it led to economic disaster. And so I would offer to you then that the purpose of government is not democracy. Democracy is a methodology that has been as destructive and as big a failure as socialism. Okay, that's why democracies have never survived. You need an indirect democracy, or we call it our republic. And the purpose of that republic is to protect justice. And justice is defined in protecting the rights of each and every individual. You need to have those priorities in mind as you join your county commission, your school boards, your city councils, and you apply for and get appointed to the various regulatory boards that we have, from the zoning boards to the library board, to the health boards, to the planning boards, to the water quality boards, all of those things. If we do not get involved and participate in those and be prepared to shoulder those burdens, then we must take what we get. Okay, I'm reminded of Winston Churchill when he was defeated for election as prime minister in July of 1945. He said, "The people have spoken, now let them be punished." Well, we can be punished for not participating. We can be punished for not joining the fray, if you will. And so, as I used to tell my students over and over, in the United States of America and the state of Montana system of government, you're going to get the government you deserve. And you'll get it hard and fast if you don't participate. Okay, so I'll open up to questions and give you some, be happy to give you some tips and clues or whatever. I don't claim to be a successful politician. I am just an aging pensioner who could not ride off into the sunset and allow things to go to hell in a handbasket without at least making an attempt to save the values that would keep Montana the great state it is. So questions, go ahead and ask.
Hey, John, while people get ready to ask their questions or formulate those and raise your hands, John, you've talked before about the three foundational elements that are God-given rights as it relates to our government. Can you reiterate what those are? Because I think it's important for people to understand where this all starts from.
Okay, well, Christianity teaches the three ingredients that this nation is founded on, and only Christianity teaches it. Only Christianity teaches the three elements that made possible the creation of the government of the United States of America, the Declaration of Independence, and the United States Constitution. The first of these is Imago Dei. We are created in the image of God. Okay, now that's very important because by so doing, the Christian religion teaches that each and every creation of God is deserving of equal and respective dignity. Imago Dei literally means in the image of God. Okay, and so we were created in his image, and we are therefore each an individual, a unique creation and worthy of respect and life. The second thing is that he gave us liberty. Okay, he gave us liberty. Okay, all right, well, he gave us free will, is what he gave us. That's liberty. We are free to choose to obey God or disobey him. And that is, by the way, our first property. And it's the basis of the idea that in the Declaration of Independence, that God gave us human rights, nobody else did, which is America's contribution to world philosophy. We're the first people to ever claim that God gives us human rights. So I would offer to you sometimes, if you have dealing with a progressive, ask them the question, do you believe in human rights? Why, yes. Who gave them to you? Well, and if the answer is the government, you say, well, the government gave it to you. The government can take it away from you. We believe in God-given rights. Therefore, they are inalienable. They cannot be taken away. Okay. And the third thing is equality under the law. God promises, and the Christian church promises, that you will be judged by God, everyone equally under his law. Equality under the law is a principle that only Christianity teaches. And consequently, then it is imperative that we recognize the fact that those three things, image Dei, equality under the law, and liberty, God-given liberty, are the essentials of the American political system. And we must protect them. And if ever there's a time when we see them under assault, it's right now. We know that there's not just one, there's not equality under the law. We know that there's being one set of justice or laws for one group of individuals and one set of laws and justice for another. We know that people are being excused for their behavior by who they are or with the color of their skin, and other people are being accused of crimes for which they may not be guilty merely because of their political affiliations. That is not equality under the law. Okay, so it's imperative that we, each and every one of us, participate at the local level, starting there, because the political freedom is, for those of you who don't know, I used to be a wrestler, college athlete, and a long-time participant and coach. And I used to teach that physical fitness is a pyramid. And the wider the base of the pyramid, the taller the pyramid can go. In other words, the more elite your fitness level can reach. And so you need to build a strong base of all of the ingredients of athleticism. And I don't need to go into that right now. But for the analogy here with political, if we have a strong base of local freedom-loving, principle-loving individuals, then the freedom will reach the highest levels and the greatest heights in this entire nation. But if we allow the pyramid to be shrinking, the base of the pyramid to shrink, and it continues to shrink, then the pyramid becomes unstable and it can be toppled very easily, as it looks like a flagpole in the wind, if you will. Okay.
John, I've got a question from Morgan coming in right now. Go ahead and unmute, Morgan.
Yeah, thank you. I think I think I should be unmuted there.
Yeah.
Representative Fuller, thank you so much. And first of all, thank you for your service to our country and to our state. I appreciate it greatly. And I also want to thank you for being one of the people in our state government that's willing to wade into some of these cultural battles that I think, unfortunately, too many conservatives shy away from in favor of more kind of economic stuff. And I think that you've clearly recognized and identified that these cultural battles are really things that we have to win. Otherwise, everything else we do is almost irrelevant. So I appreciate greatly your willingness to do that. And I thank you for that. Similarly, I think, in that vein, I see conservatives shying away from involvement in these very kind of offices and running for these offices that you've talked about. And I think there's some reasons for that, which I can accept and identify with, such as, people that are conservative are often busy raising families and starting businesses and working productively in our workforce and in our community. And I think another part of the hesitation is that there's a sense, particularly where I am, down in southwestern Montana, I'm in Park County, and my children go to school in Gallatin County, that we've already lost. That space has already been ceded to the other side. The Liberals control all these school boards and everything, so what's the point of going and mixing it up with these crazy Liberals? And for that reason, turnout for these elections, and I'm helping some school board candidates now in a very small rural district that we're in, turnout in our district is low. We've got the benefit of a little bit of enthusiasm right now, but I would like to know which communication strategies and kind of on the ground efforts have you seen be successful in getting our brothers and sisters in the community to participate in this process and see the importance of these races as we see them?
Well, thank you, Morgan. Thank you for your kind words also. And I would offer that just like a pebble thrown into a still pond creates ripples, one never knows where, how far that ripple will go. And when you make the effort. I would first off, I would start with you. The words of John Adams. Okay, we know our duty. The results are up to God. Okay, so our duty is then to get involved. And so, how do you get involved? Is to some of the questions that you're answering, and it may start simply by not remaining silent when someone makes a comment. Okay, that's the first thing. For instance, my wife was at the grocery store the other day, and there was a lady in line and made a comment about a subject, and my wife, God bless her, she's a Southern woman, born and raised in Mississippi. So she said she confronted the individual. And the individual looked at her like I had never crossed their mind like that. Okay, so I have, in all my decades of dealing with young people, my metaphor is one never knows which acorn turns into the mighty oak. Okay, and so you have to keep saying the right things, have to keep talking. You have to keep projecting what it is that you think is necessary. And silence is consent. Okay. And so, if you don't know what the school board is doing and what they're teaching, find out what they are teaching. I mean, it is no accident that critical race theory has swept the school boards across this country unchallenged until recently. I've said if there is a silver lining in this dark cloud of COVID, it is that the veil has been ripped off of what has been going on in our local governments and our school boards and our schools without people's knowledge, without them knowing what's going on. And so in going back to the, now, I do suffer from elderly ADD, so I keep sometimes, but I am going back to your question, definitively answer your question. Definitively answer your question is that each and every contact you make, each and every networking thing, you can't go home from work and only deal with the family. You have to take the family places. You have to do things with the family. You have to, with your peers and your colleagues and your churches and in the grocery line. If a conversation strikes up, strike up the conversation and bring up the subjects. And then you will find that it will take longer and longer to get through the grocery store. Okay, but all of that is what Aristotle called the art of politics. Okay, man is a political animal. Okay, because everything, I used to teach also that you might not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. They want your money, and they want your freedom, and they want the power that you can give them. Okay, and so I would urge each and every one of us to continue to talk to people, to when in a social situation, don't just talk about the Bears, the football Bears. My son is a Bear fan. God help him. I can tell you why, but that's a different story. But don't just talk about the Bears. Don't just talk about the weather. Talk about what's really important, because what's really important is political. What's really important is, of course, what's going to happen to all of us when we pass this system and this country over to our children and our grandchildren. That's what's really important. And so continually discuss important things. Okay, if people, all they want to do is talk about shallow things, then ask them, what do you think about something more essential and important? And then if they are spout the same old monologue that they've heard from the mainstream media, then get into an active discussion about why you think it's different. You know, politics is also the art of persuasion. It's you know, the progressives, they want to silence us, they want to censor us, they want to crush us. Okay, well, they don't like confrontation. They don't like moral arguments because they know in their heart of hearts that they're wrong. Okay, and of course, that's why they resort to name calling, and they expect us to slink away with our tail between our legs because they have called us a racist or a bigot. My answer to that is, what's your point? Okay, you remind me of a sixth grader who is losing an argument. Okay, what's your point? Okay, so continually bring up important things, valuable things, life-changing things. And of course, we are also given the Great Commission by the Lord to spread the word of the gospel. I'll change it slightly. You know, Andrew Breitbart, a great philosopher, said that politics is downstream from culture. I've taken that to heart. Morgan, for instance, you said, why am I so ready to jump into the cultural war? Because if we don't win the cultural war, the political system will be lost. Okay, so that's why we have to step back above the issue and deal with the cultural issues of the day. And believe me, they are, progressives will try to tell you that if you concentrate on, if you deal with the cultural issues, that it's a loser. Well, if we allow the culture to be completely lost, everything will be lost, including our elections. Any other
Morgan,
questions?
thanks for that question, Morgan. By the way, you talked about school board. A lot of people won't get involved with school board because they think, well, I don't have kids that go there. But some good ammunition for that is you still pay taxes if you live in that community, as well as the kids that are being educated in those schools become our future business leaders in the cities that we live in. So on top of everything that John just said, which is a great line of reasoning, Dan Vogel's got a question for John.
Okay, let me interrupt you. How valuable and important school boards are. Your property taxes, if I've heard one thing, I hear it over and over again, I need property tax relief. Well, in Montana, over 90% of your property taxes go to support the local schools. Brad Abel, our county commissioner here in Flathead, can tell you just how big the budget for the school district is. It's millions of dollars. Millions and millions of dollars goes into your local school boards at your county level, in your local schools. Why would you not be involved in the disbursement of the most important aspect, not only even if you don't have children, but the fact that most of your tax dollars from your property taxes is going to that endeavor. Okay. Dan, go ahead.
John, thank you so much. This is a perfect segue into this question. And this is more of a nuts and bolts campaign kind of approach type of question. So let's use the word messaging as kind of our jumping off point. Where do you see the balance between listening, very, very vital for any sort of engagement, no matter where you are, and selling your point of view, selling your campaign, selling yourself within an election process? Yes, we need to stay the course. Yes, we need to make the arguments. We need to be able to stand up there. If we don't listen back, then it appears to me that we lose some of the credibility that we would like to actually gain from that. So talk to us a little bit about that balance between listening, being receptive, and selling the point of view of conservative.
Okay, well, thank you, Daniel, for that question. If I had a definitive answer that would work, I wouldn't be an obscure pensioner running for a state Senate seat in Montana. I would probably be running for president if I was able to have an answer to that. But I would do it like I do in my classroom. My answer to your question, I would do the same thing. I start by asking questions. Formulate a list of questions that you think that you want answered by your constituents. Okay, what do you think is our number one question or problem here in Flathead County or your county, Flathead County? What are the primary things that you think that a state legislator, which is what I'm running for, could do for you? Okay, if I'm a county commissioner, running for county commissioner, I would ask questions more specific to what the county commissioners are there. Okay, and part of your job is also to educate. For instance, you have to educate people sometimes that state government cannot cure national government policies, and state legislature cannot cure county policies or county what are the problems within the county or in the school board. Now, state legislatures can do certain overriding umbrella things, of course. So in that, that's a very good question. I know that you're very cognizant of the need for marketing. The concept between listening and marketing is you have to start, I think you start by asking questions of your constituents when you start meeting them. So ask the questions that are on your mind and that you think are on their mind, and then ask them, what do you think is the answer? Because you might be able to educate them as to the whether or not that a particular government can cure that question or not. For instance, let's take the issue right now that is endemic in Flathead County, affordable housing. Okay, it is an issue, and you're going to get some politicians that are going to say, I'm going to fight for more affordable housing. Well, most of your constituents know that you're blowing smoke. Okay, and by the way, just as a quick thing, I personally never ever say that issue is complicated. Because when a politician says that something is complicated, you can best believe that they're about to blow smoke up your butt. Okay, because most things are not that complicated. Now, which was one of the beauties of Trump. A lot of people didn't like him and didn't like his delivery method, but the reality was he could make decisions. Okay, so let's take the issue of affordable housing. Okay, so people say that affordable housing, it's one of the major economic issues besetting Flathead County, and it may be it is one of the major issues statewide also. Okay, so the first question is government capable of solving the problem? Okay, and if the constituent says yes, then ask them what the government needs to do it. Okay, I would offer to you that part of your job would be to prove to people and demonstrate and educate people that every time government gets involved in increasing the quantity of government housing, the prices of housing goes up. And that's indisputable. It's a statistical fact. And so the first thing you do is admit there are some things governments can do and some things governments can't do. Now, certainly one of the things that government does do is it does a lot of things to increase the cost of housing. So maybe you start by asking, what policies do you think government can do to reduce the cost of housing? What regulations should be loosened? What concerns do you have? And if you have builders and contractors they can give you a long list of things that could be done to reduce the housing. You know, from impact fees to codes to setbacks to everything else. So part of our job as policymakers is to reconcile the divergent interests of all of the parties involved. But at the same time, when you're trying to portray a message, you have to be, the balance you have to strike is that you don't have there have been successful politicians in history, in American history. They're only successful temporarily that come up with panaceas, you know, a catchy phrase or option or whatever. And they've gone quite a ways for a while, but they are not leaders. Okay. We do not have panaceas. We have to have input, as you said, to be the combination of the listener as well as the messenger and teacher of what is possible. And sometimes you have to be the teacher about things that those things are not possible. This is, however, probable or possible. Does that help, Daniel?
John, thank you for John, thanks for that answer. Hey, before we start to wrap up the call, and John, thank you for your detailed responses. Any last questions? I've got one for you, John, while they think about that. And what that is we've got several different arenas that people are running for elections on this call today. And I'm just curious your opinion on what role does the judiciary system play in any of these elected roles across the state and other states?
Okay, well, that's a good question. One of the things that run for office is it'd be nice for us to get good conservative attorneys to run for judges. You know, judges in the state of Montana are elected from the state Supreme Court down to the county judge and state's attorneys. Okay, however, when it comes to the judiciary, we have allowed the judiciary to be controlled by the Montana Bar Association, in my humble opinion. And the result is that why people don't know what the judges stand for. I have two suggestions that I'm going to run in the next legislature when I'm elected to the state Senate. One is that every political office in the state of Montana should be partisan. There's no such thing in today's world of a nonpartisan election. People need to know whether you're a D or an R or an L or something else, or a G, or Green Party. Okay? Have that. What are you afraid of when it comes to that? And secondly is, I believe that the Montana State Supreme Court should be elected regionally, that all 7 of them now are from Helen. What does that tell you? Okay. There should be one elected from Northwest Montana, and one from Northeast Montana, and one from Southwest Montana, et cetera. Okay, just like we have Public Service Commission regional elections.
Thank you. We've got Amber. She's got our last question of the night, unless anybody else has one more after that, but we'll start to wrap it up here. Lloyd's got one more after that. Go ahead, Amber.
Okay, so this might be a completely newbie question. I've never done anything like this. I have my website and my signs ready to roll, but my big question is where should I spend the money that, like, what is the most impactful? I plan on doing a lot of meet and greets with, I'm running for school board here in Bozeman.
Outstanding.
So I just really want to make sure that I'm putting my money where I'm going to get the most response and exposure. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Very good. Amber, God bless you for running for school board in Gallatin County. Full disclosure, I used to live in Bozeman and moved to the Flathead 30 years ago, but still. I thought way back in the 1970s I was going to retire to Bozeman, but anyway, that's an incredibly good question. Where's you get the biggest bang for your buck? For a school board election, I'm going to defer a little bit to Jim Riley, but I personally think that door hangers, something outlining your your positions on issues and that you can give to people when you see them and to spend the time. One of the great things about Montana, and I think it's still true throughout all of Montana, I still think this is true, that people will vote for you, whether even if they're a Democrat, you're a Republican, or you're a Republican and they're a Democrat, or vice versa, or whatever, if they have met you and know you and like you. Okay? So there's no substitute for face-to-face interaction, especially in a school board election. Jim, what's the normal, Jim can tell you more about the normal voter turnout.
Yeah, and Amber, I can talk to you offline about your specific demographics in your area, but what's key is here, 1 or 2 mailers during your campaign, get some signs out there, but most importantly, John just hit it on the head. If you're limited on budget, the number one thing I say is knock on doors. And what you will find is people will ask you, like, or they'll mention you, I'm surprised that you're out here, or thank you for being out here. I didn't know anybody cared. And I think that the real shock to the community is when somebody's running for school board and they're knocking on doors, because it's almost a given when you're running for a legislator, Congress, or senator, or commissioner, that you're going to be out there. But school board's really taken by surprise. So with limited budget, knock on the doors, make the rounds, get involved in some events, attend the rodeo, or whatever you guys do down there are really critical factors. So I'll talk to you more offline after the call if you like. I want to get Lloyd in before we have to wrap up the call. Lloyd, go ahead and unmute your button there and we'll make this our last question.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Representative Fuller, for speaking with us this evening and giving us so much great insight as to our various campaigns. My question is, we're basically in a war of sorts to protect our values. And wars used to be by uniformed soldiers on each side. You knew who it was. And then, Iraq and Afghanistan rolled around and it was, you don't know who you're fighting because they're all blended in. And how you were saying that every election should have a D or an R or a G or an L. But nowadays, we run into like the Putnams and other various people running for office that I won't name that are running under a Republican spot, but are actually voting 100% Democrat. So how do we get past that, and how do we make sure that our candidates are going to know when we don't have a voting record that we're who we actually say we are?
Lloyd, thank you very much. That is a question, and what we've tried to do. There is each county in Montana has a Republican County Central Committee, and they have a Democrat Central Committee too. They are statutorily have certain duties, but it's their job if they're doing what they're supposed to be, in my opinion, of what a Central Committee is supposed to be doing. It's their job to vet candidates and promote good candidates that adhere to the party platform. Okay, and full disclosure, in the name that you mentioned, he ran in the primary, and he was not vetted by the Central Committee, and he was the Central Committee at that time, the Flathead County Central Committee had taken a position that they would be neutral in primaries. I disagree strenuously with that. The party needs to be involved in the primaries. It needs to recruit and support those candidates that will be true to the platform. And that's why I'm so happy to see you jumping into the fray, becoming active. And I know that you are going to be successful. And again, I would offer to every election is a learning experience. And if you you learn what works, you learn what doesn't work, you learn what you did right, you learn what you did wrong, and you can't automatically assume that we have sole access to the truth. You know, despite the fact that we think we do. So be open to learning and be open to setbacks, and but by all means, please persevere. Persevere. I learned that lesson when I was a young wrestler. I won a tournament because I was the only one that showed up in my weight class. You know, sometimes you win in life by showing up every day. So let's persevere. Okay. Thank you so much, Lloyd.
John, I just want to thank you for your time tonight. It's just wonderful to hear from an elected official with such a great background and so much wisdom on these matters. I'm sure we could learn from you every week, but we won't give you that burden. John's running a full campaign schedule right now, running for Senate here in Flathead County. Much to be learned from him. Please note, every week we're going to do these calls 6 o'clock on Tuesdays, unless we find a consensus that doesn't really work. So far, so good. Rod is working on next week's guest and topic, which we will send out in the next couple days. If you don't think I have your email address, please email me so that I have it. And that's Jim@LiveLifeDriven. It was down in the notes on the chat. And I will make sure that you have a membership code to get into the back end of the syndicate so that you could watch our 2 pre-recorded calls. We're starting to upload some resources there now, some printed materials. If you haven't seen the campaign guide, we'll get that off to you. That's also on the back end of the website. You can get that one just by sending us your email on the website. But these are important factors. And to Amber's question, it starts to walk you through some of the things that you might consider for campaigning. So we want to be a resource. Please, if you know anybody in your areas, and we're representing quite a few areas tonight, if you know of anybody that's running for any elected position, let's get them on the calls and give them the tools and allow them to meet some of our other great guests. And let's win this race. So I want to thank everybody for being on. John, I see my co-partner here, Rod's been on the call. Thank you, Rod, and everybody else. I'll shout out to Brad Abel. I know he's busy, but he's our county commissioner up here. So thank you for the elected officials on the call, and look forward to hearing from everybody next week or during the week if you have questions. So thank you all so much. We'll sign out with that. And Amber, if you want to stay on, I'll help you out.
Thanks again, John and Jim.